Historically, men's fashion ebbs and flows between masculine and feminine, with perhaps the most feminine extreme era being the 1760s and 70s in England, where aristocratic men, after their grand tour of Italy, adopted an effeminate nuance and called it macaroni. The name came from the Italian pasta they had grown accustomed to while on the continent, and the macaroni style is referenced in the song Yankee Doodle Dandy. An aristocratic men's club in London called the Macaroni Club was created in 1764, with thousands of the club members adopting feminine traits. Things like wearing massive wigs with tiny hats. Men carried floral bouquets as accessories. They wore heavy facial makeup, including rouge, white foundation, and faux beauty marks. Many wore red high-heel shoes with elaborate buckles. Almost all of them affected high-pitched voices. And what's relevant to us is that all of them used significantly more fragrance than women of the day, and the fragrances were strongly floral and strongly sweet. This is YSL's Myself. It has a ton of orange blossom, a traditionally female note, and an awful lot of ambroxan. And so essentially this is a sweet white floral bomb. And based on sales projections, by the end of 2027, this DNA will be the #1 men's fragrance DNA on Earth. That's a notable point because this is often compared to the original YSL Lieb. Now, the original Lieb came out in 2019, but as of 2023, it was considered a top 25 female fragrance of all time. Not unisex, but female. And so now it is going to be marketed to the average guy. And look, I've been in fragrances a long time. You tend to get bored, and then so you start to explore. I have a couple of female fragrances. I really like Black Orchid from Tom Ford, but I'm an experienced person. What people are doing now, you're taking the average guy off the street and you're introducing them to, even 5 years ago, would have been a completely traditional female scent. When I say I have 8 fragrances that won't make you smell like your girlfriend, that's not being sensationalist. That is exactly where we are today with men's fragrances. Fragrance number 1 is Dior's Eau Sauvage. This fragrance came out in 1966, and it was kind of like the fresh fougere of the day. So a fresh barber shop, something like Platinum Egoist, but for the 1960s. So you're going to get some old-fashioned notes. So basil is here quite a bit. That's an aromatic note that's kind of gone out of style a little bit. You're also going to get some oak moss, but it was a fresh fougere. So you're going to get a lot of lemon and a lot of bergamot. The crazy thing about this 60-year-old fragrance is the fact that in France, to this very day, this is still a top 30 seller. But the French have a very different relationship to fragrances than everybody else. I started watching fragrance YouTube from France. I started watching some of the French TV, and they treat their perfumers like they're celebrities. They're on TV a lot. Everybody knows who Francis Kirkshaw is, and the perfumer that created this is considered the father of perfumery in many ways, Edmund Rudnitska. And he created this, and this was the first male fragrance for Christian Dior. He also created the very first Rochas fragrance. He also created the very first 2 Hermes fragrances. So he's kind of a legend. The French know this, and they still keep buying it. Rudnitska was the very first perfumer that went out on his own. Most of the perfumers back then worked for the house. They didn't even own their own formulas. And the crazy thing about him is, in his entire lifetime, the 52 years he worked in fragrances, he only made 17 of them. If you had the equivalent today, someone like Alberto Morillas, you're talking in the thousands, because Rudnitska treated fragrance like an art. He didn't rush it. It was like creating a painting. It was an artistic creation. The perfumers today, they've got 10 on the go at one time. It's about money making. But the reason so many classics came from Rudnitska is because, as I said, he's an artist. And I've been hammering you guys about this for a long time. But this is a piece of art in many ways. The first men's Dior fragrance. Definitely not something your girlfriend is likely to wear. Fragrance number 2 is Givenchy Gentleman EDP Intense. And this fragrance is often compared to 2 others, one in particular, but the only difference is the naming convention. So the main one this is compared to is Dior Homme Eau. Dior Homme was an iris-based fragrance, and Dior Homme Eau was a lighter version. This is also mildly compared to Prada L'Homme L'Eau, which again is a lighter version of an iris fragrance. But the one thing I can't understand is the Prada and the Dior were called Eau, which implies lighter. This is called Intense. And I do not understand that because this is not an intense fragrance. If you are familiar with the Givenchy Gentleman DNA, it's a lot of iris and a lot of sweetness. And this is the exact opposite of intense. It is a much lighter version. It's not going to come as a surprise, but this has an awful lot of iris. But when it comes to the sweetness, there's no vanilla, there's no tonka. There's part of the tonka bean, they use coumarin, and coumarin comes across as hay-like. So a little bit of sweetness, but it's earthier and it's not quite as sweet. Coumarin is also a little bit powdery. So yeah, not the same intensity, oddly enough. And then you're also going to get a fresh cypress note as well. All of those things work to lighten up the fragrance overall. There's some cardamom. There's also some woods in the base. But yes, this is a spring and summer version, which is perfect for now, of the Givenchy Gentleman line. Fragrance number 3 is Cedrat Boisee Intense from the house of Mancera, and this is the very first intense version that Mancera ever did. And part of the reason for that is that they released Cedrat Boisee a year after Aventus came out. An awful lot of people thought, wow, you just made a cheaper Aventus. Mancera don't like that because they do make original fragrances, and some people say that they're a clone house, at least with certain of their fragrances. So they decided, look, we're going to make an intense version. They made this, and it's very different. They definitely pulled it in a different direction. They also really increased the fragrance oil amount. It's got 45% fragrance oil. That number is a difficult number to find with most houses. I was able to find it for this one, and it really does feel like 45%. When I spray this on, it goes on oily, so it is very thick. And the weird thing is that even though they moved away from Aventus, this has become really popular. So the whole thing actually worked out well. So the opening here is Aventus-like. You're going to get blackcurrant and citrus notes, but then it goes in a completely different direction. You start to get spices, and then you get oud and leather. And if that sounds like Aventus mixed with a Middle Eastern style, oud, leather, and spices is very Middle Eastern, you're right, because Pierre Montale is a French perfumer who worked as the main perfumer of the Saudi royal family. So he has got his hands in both worlds. He grabbed this fragrance, the criticism that he was getting for it being an Aventus clone. He said, look, I'm going to blend the two. I'm going to move it in a Middle Eastern direction. I'm going to pump up the volume. And boy, oh boy, does this really work. I've had this for over a year. I like it more and more every day. The performance is beast mode. And if you live in a warm climate, I mean, this is exactly what you need, because fundamentally it is a fresh fragrance more than anything, but it's different and it smells really good. No, it's not Aventus, but it's just a hell of a lot more interesting. Fragrance number 4 is Terre Eau de Parfum Intense. This is something of a polarizing fragrance. You can be like me or Chad from A Gentleman's Journey. He tried it for the first time recently and he loved it as well. But there are a lot of people that aren't as fond of it. Now, I must say, it does make sense to me that this is not super popular for a couple reasons. The first is this really is not a transparent fragrance. It doesn't really fit perfectly in the Terre line. That is a light, transparent, woody scent. There are some woods here, but this is thicker. This is, I would say, almost gourmandy in a way, but that gourmandy element also leads to the second point. The two gourmandy elements are not the most appealing in the world. Like licorice is kind of a weird note, and there's a lot of licorice in here. So if you don't like licorice, you probably won't like it. Same with coffee. There's also a strong coffee note here. So there's a lot of reasons why people may or may not like it. However, what I love about this is this was not chasing the money. This was an artistic endeavor meant to expand the opportunities that we have to try different things and not just chase a very narrow focus going after the money. And Hermes is an art house, and so for me, they came through with this one. But in many ways, this is an odd fragrance. The brief on this was volcanic earth. That's what they wanted something to smell like. And I've heard Christine Nagel's explanation of how she created this lava accord. I don't know what she's talking about. I have no idea. I love her, but I'm not buying it. Now, the stone note, though, I can definitely pick up some minerality. There's definitely the stone note. I'm with her on that. But even weirder, why would you put licorice and coffee in a fragrance where the theme was volcanic earth? Well, apparently for Christine Nagel, it's because the very first licorice extract, the first natural licorice scent, arrived on Hermes's door while she was making it. She liked it, and she thought, why not? We're going to throw it in. So yeah, this is the very first fragrance ever to use real licorice. Normally, prior to this, they would have used either anise or an anise accord, a created accord. This is actually natural licorice. Same thing with the coffee, though, for her, apparently. She doesn't like working with coffee. She says it's tricky. You leave the roaster on too long and it ruins it. But then a shipment of coffee showed up and she loved it and threw it in as well. So yeah, it's crazy weird. It is, though, intense in a way. And I love her explanation for it because she's very critical of Parfum de Marly and Dior Sauvage Elixir. She sees there's being some kind of an arms race for making intense fragrances just by adding more and more and more fragrance oil. She considers that easy. She wanted to create an intensity, and I think she did, by changing the character of the fragrance. And I think adding licorice to coffee, definitely an intense character. This is an intense fragrance. I think this one is a good one. It isn't for everybody, but it is for me. Fragrance number 5 is Versace's Oud Noir, and this came out at the tail end of the oud craze. It started in 2002 with M7, and then you got things like Oud Wood, Royal Oud, then you got M7 Oud Absolute, and in 2013 they came out with this. And really, this is very, very similar to Tom Ford's Oud Wood. For a while there, I thought, no, they wouldn't copy Oud Wood. But the fact that there is no perfumer listed for a major brand like Versace, that's a dead giveaway that this is a corporate creation. So I've said in the past that if there is one perfumer or two, with two you've got one doing one thing and one doing another, it can be an artistic creation. You're giving a little bit of yourself to the fragrance. The more perfumers you get, like 3 or more, there's a lot of compromises being made. You're getting more of a corporate fragrance. But when there are no perfumers listed, and there's none anywhere, not just on Fragrantica or Parfumo, I cannot find a perfumer attached to this. That means there were so many people involved in the creation of this fragrance that I didn't even bother listing them. So it's a complete corporate job. And at the time, and I think still, Versace farmed out the vast majority of their work on their fragrances to a company called Euroitalia. And Euroitalia, they create the fragrance, they market it, they bottle it, they distribute it, everything. They do everything with regards to the fragrance. Sometimes the house will have a direction, some kind of, what they want. And for the Eros line, Donatella Versace have been very, very strict about it needing to be a club scent, but I don't think they cared about this one. This was essentially a cheaper version, a designer version of Tom Ford's Oud Wood. Now, I love it anyway. I don't think I would have been able to buy it if it had been a Tom Ford scent, but yeah, this is a corporate creation, unfortunately. The title of the video is 8 fragrances you wear when you don't want to smell like your girlfriend, and fragrance number 6 fits that to a T. This is Patchouli Leaves by Montale, and this is essentially pure patchouli oil. So unless your girlfriend grew up in the 60s and she's still wearing patchouli oil, you're not going to smell like her. This is a very, very masculine scent. Patchouli, as a note, especially these days, makes a fragrance lean more masculine. In fact, that was the one thing in YSL myself that they kind of nodded towards men. They added a patchouli note in the base, but this is all patchouli. There is a lot of sweetness here too. You're going to get vanilla, amber, and labdanum. It's a little bit of musk, but it just smells like patchouli. And it's not a quiet fragrance either. It's 12 hours of longevity. It's tons of projection. I put this on the other day, forgot I had it on, and I was like, what is that? I eventually realized, yeah, it's strong. Now, I do like patchouli. This is one I will wear selectively. I think 8 milliliters is just about right for this scent because it is so strong as well. Fragrance number 7 is one that I had for about 6 months. I never liked it, and it was only when I tried another fragrance that was similar to it and got used to that I came to enjoy this. This is Kenzo per Homme Eau de Parfum. This is the 2022 version. There's 2 Eau de Parfums in the Kenzo Homme line. this is the one you want. This is the one that's very highly rated. It's a 4.28 rating on Fragrantica. This is a Quentin Bish creation, and I really didn't like it. And I mean, I can see a lot of people not liking it because it's an odd combination of notes. There's C notes, there's leather, and then there's patchouli, although it being Quentin Bish, it's probably Akagali wood and not patchouli. But anyway, the main thing is the combination of something that is C notes and something that is leather. So complete polar opposites. And I hated this. But then I tried Oud Mineral, which I really did like, and I liked right from the get-go. And that's a combination that is also polarizing, very similar. C notes on the one hand, and then you've got oud on the other. And I kind of got used to it. And then I put this on again, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what's wrong with this? I really liked it. It's got great performance. It's still fundamentally a fresh fragrance. So yeah, I can handle it. Now, this is nowhere near as the quality of Oud Mineral. And I don't like it quite as much, but I can definitely understand it more and appreciate it more. And obviously a lot of people do. You don't get a 428 rating if the fragrance is not very good. So this is a masculine forward, fresh aquatic. I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I think fragrance number 8 is the strangest fragrance that I have in my entire collection. But Rasasi Shurah is strange in so many ways. One of the things I think is strange is the fact that you can get this right now. It's a 90 milliliter bottle, really good presentation, and this is a 12-hour fragrance. You can get it for $18 at FragranceNet. I think that's absolutely nuts. I think this should be right up where all the Hawas fragrances are. However, it's not for everybody. So the composition is just super odd. First, we'll start with the floral element. There are 4 floral notes, including 2 rose notes as freesia and jasmine, so rose and white floral. And you really do notice the creamy floral element. You're also going to get oud and amber. So that's a Middle Eastern combination big time. And so that's already strange enough. A heavily floral Middle Eastern oud type fragrance, but then you throw tomato leaf. And when I say tomato leaf, I'm not talking about one note here. I'm talking about massive amounts of tomato leaf, basically like an herb garden. You throw that in the open and you've got a very strange fragrance. But the weird thing about it is, for me, it really does work. I always look forward to putting this on. It lasts for 12 hours. And I think the fact that it lasts 12 hours is the reason that I do like it. The problem is that tomato leaf. There's so much of it, and it's so... I found it unappealing. Took me a long time to get used to it, but I knew the fragrance was a 12-hour one. So after a couple of hours, the tomato leaf died down, and everything else I liked. I liked the creamy floral mixed with the oud. I thought it was really good. There's some sweetness later on. It was worth my while to wait, and the more I wear the fragrance now, I don't really notice the tomato leaf as much. It's not a note I'm super happy with. I do think that's 90% of the reason most people don't like it. But the underlying scent is absolutely gorgeous. But it is very strange. I will grant you that. So anyway, I think it's become pretty obvious. I'm really, really not a fan of YSL myself. It is the only fragrance to this point, well, maybe I bought a couple, but the main one that I've spent an awful lot of money on that I did not buy it for myself. I tested it in the store. I found it feminine. I really didn't like it. And you know, I've criticized sweet fragrances before, but the fact is, I do like sweet. I just don't like crazy sweet. Whereas the orange blossom mixed with the sweetness, I mean, the thing is, women do like it. You will get compliments. I want to be a man. I want to be a masculine man. I don't want to be emasculated by fashion trends. It really bothers me. It'd be kind of like a fashion influencer getting up there and starting a young man off with something akin to a dress or something and saying, well, that's what people are wearing these days. I don't like it. I mean, look, I will give them all the sweet fragrances in the world, but this orange blossom stuff, and I know I'm talking to a lot of people that really like the myself DNA. I hear you. But yeah, that's not, that's not for me. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.